today's discussion is to talk about lifetime GPS. And you know, in the title of it, it really hits home for not only people who I know personally, but then also people who are in our community. And this is something that, you know, we have to talk about. This isn't the first time and definitely will not be the last time. Again, when history repeats itself. Um, so let's see if I can, there we go. Awesome. So I want to also thank our wonderful panelists today, Brittany, Mark, as well as Aaron. Really appreciate you all taking out the time to be able to talk about this very, not only very serious topic, but also very passionate topic, because again, you know, there's so many different areas that where we can kind of dive into this. But, you know, if you don't mind, and I'm going to ask Britt to probably go first. If you don't mind, just kind of introducing yourself, Britt, and really talk about your connection to the criminal justice system, and the criminal and legal system. Thank you.
Yeah. So hi, I'm Brittany. I am the operations manager at Expo. I also previously, some people may recognize me, I previously worked at Nehemiah as a housing coordinator. So currently in my role, I do a couple different things, but one of the things I help specialize in is people who've been impacted by convictions related to sex crimes. So anything within that realm, I'm kind of like the legal guru, or the not even legal, just like understanding of the statute and the law. I've been doing this work for about a decade. So it's something, yeah, really close to my heart, and some life experiences.
All right. Mark, would you mind going next, please?
No problem. My name is Mark Weinberg, and I'm a civil rights lawyer in Chicago. And for the last 7 years, my partner and I have been involved with challenging restrictions that have been imposed in our society on people that have been convicted of sex offenses. We've brought litigation throughout the Midwest. I see that it says my internet is unstable. Is everything okay? Is it
you're a little choppy, but it's gotten better.
Okay.
Yeah,
so we've challenged various restrictions that are imposed upon people that have been convicted of sex offenses. And one of our lawsuits is a challenge to Wisconsin's scheme, whereby people that have been convicted of on 2 or more occasions of having committed a sex offense are required to wear a GPS for life. And that lawsuit is now in the federal Court of Appeals, the 7th Circuit Court of Appeals in Chicago.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, Mark, for being here. And Aaron, my brother and colleague, if you don't mind introducing yourself as well.
I'm Aaron Hicks. I am the reentry coordinator at Nehemiah, and this affects me personally because I have to live it. The things that this Lunch and Learn will touch on, it won't just be about content in the sense of we're just having a discussion, because it's about real people who have to live this in real time, and it affects us daily. So this is one of the reasons I'm here on this discussion.
So I'm gonna go ahead and jump back over to Britt. Britt, if you don't mind just giving us an overview of the GPS monitoring and what it's all about.
Sure. So electronic monitoring, also GPS, global positioning system is basically your exact longitude and latitude. So for most people, just think of opening an app on your phone, looking at Google, and where that dot is, GPS works the exact same way. The way in which I see it the most is what Mark and Aaron kind of alluded to was lifetime. I see that, but specifically in how people are impacted on probation and parole. The other way that we see GPS used with community supervision is with discretionary, which means the PO can decide, a PO meaning a probation officer, parole officer, can decide to put you on for a GPS for 90 days. What we often see, though, is that people end up being on it for months because of malfunctions and all the different things that can happen with a GPS, weird restricted curfews. The way we also see it impacted is what are called no zones. meaning like there are certain zones you're not allowed to go to, but people aren't given those zones. According to the Department of Corrections, people are supposed to know where they're not supposed to go. That's not being given to a lot of people. I've sat in a few PO offices trying to figure out how people are supposed to know that they were in a zone that they weren't allowed to. The other biggest way we see it, particularly to the registry when it comes to GPS, is individuals who were a minor, so 16, 17, or maybe they were young, 18, were convicted of a sex crime for having consensual sex with their girlfriend. But the way the law works, you can't legally have consent under certain ages. And then now we're coming back and serving a misdemeanor for possession of marijuana. And now they're again being treated as if they were on as a sex, like as someone who recommitted a sex offense, and then being put on discretionary GPS. So like, again, they're going back through the system, replaying it out. So we've seen a lot of the GPS impacted with people and probation officers and the way in which that people are automatically getting arrested. I mean, 2 weeks ago, I got a call because, rather got a message from someone who their significant other was in a space that was a no zone for 4 minutes. By the time they got home within a few hours, there were police there and they sat in jail for the entire weekend. That's what we're seeing when you talk about electronic monitoring, what it is. It's a thing to track you wherever you go. And then you may or may not end up in a zone that you didn't know you were not supposed to be in, and then you get arrested, and then it plays out. So a big part of my experience in seeing GPS is really with probation and parole. And we have a couple, lifetime is also another thing of how a lot of people are also impacted. So coming straight out of prison with a bracelet, and it's an ankle bracelet. So to be clear, it's a huge thing that you wear around your bracelet. That I think the new ones vibrate now. Previously they beeped, but I don't know that everyone has really gotten the new ones. So yes.
Yeah, no, thank you so much, Britt. I do want to ask you, as far as, do the zones ever change?
Yeah, so zones can be specific to a person, or they can be, so like someone may have like a no contact and then a zone be apart. So an example being, let's say someone gets in a fight with their significant other and now they have a no contact per their PO. They could end up having a no zone around that person's work and around their school or around their parents' location also. So the zones change consistently. I've not seen people actually get maps. Like I've had to go into POs and be like, you need to print a map of all these zones. And every time a zone changes, they should know, and this should be outlined within their rules. There are some that are like automatic. So for some people, but the zones are also bigger than people realize. Like if they're given a zone, they don't realize like it's actually a zone. And if they're even near that, it could cause an issue.
Thank you so much. I just think that that's, I'm really glad the fact that you even kind of emphasize on the fact that because if a zone can change, but yet no one knows that the zoning isn't changed for that individual, and then the next thing that now they have a warrant for their arrest for whatever reason for just being in that zone, in that area that they had no clue. That's a huge problem.
It's also how big, like vague the descriptions are, right? So like some people may have in their rules, you're not allowed to go to a place that makes a certain, like a significant amount of their proceeds from alcohol. So then you may be in a zone picking somebody up or stopping by in a parking lot, even not even in the actual facility, but that could cover a variety of things. So that's the other thing, is a lot of people in their rules where they have no zones are like, they're not just the typical schools and parks. They could be a bar or all these other things. And then it's like, it's a very vague thing. So no reasonable person would remember every single time that they are somewhere that's a no zone. Right. Just driving by can also trigger it. So
thank you so much. Mark, so if you don't mind, if you can kind of describe how this issue affects civil and human rights, and what kinds of issues have you seen your clients face?
So I'm sorry, you want me to identify the difficulties that the people on that face who are on lifetime GPS, or about?
Well, yeah, if you could describe the issues and effects of civil and human rights. I mean, let's just stay there.
Yeah,
First,
sure.
right. Yeah, because you know, just thinking about what Britt said, and then also we know how our community and other communities alike, you know, how is this affecting the human right? We're not talking about the person's what the criminal history. We're not talking about any of the other stuff. We're talking about just the basic human right, just getting down to the basics.
So I'm not, I guess I can talk about the legal rights, the legal
that's
issue
fine.
that our lawsuit is it says that the lifetime GPS violates the Fourth Amendment to the United States Constitution. The Fourth Amendment says that the government is restricted from unreasonable search and seizures. And it's well established that having to wear a GPS constitutes both a search and a seizure of the person, because the monitors can identify where a person goes 24/7 for the rest of his life. They can't know what a person is doing when he's in a particular location, but they know what churches he goes to, you know, what restaurants he eats at, and what friends he consorts with. And so based on that, we believe that the lifetime GPS is unconstitutional. You know, related to something that Brittany was talking about, what we also see with the lifetime GPS is a lot of malfunctioning GPS occurrences that result in people being put on parole holds, that is, thrown into the local jail for mostly, you know, 2 or 3 nights, forced to miss work, forced to, you know, taken from their homes. I don't want to, you know, get off topic, but that's another a lawsuit that we're interested in bringing, because these malfunctioning, because we think it's unreasonable that the police, or actually the monitoring software center, sends out warrants to arrest these people when the GPSs malfunction, resulting in people being taken to local jails. And we think that this is because they are familiar with the problems associated with malfunctioning GPSs, they should not be arresting people willy-nilly in the way that they do. And anyway, that's a very serious problem associated with these GPSs.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. Thank you for sharing that. But also, well, you kind of already kind of tapped on this. But if Aaron, if you don't mind, just kind of just really just talking about and telling more of your story, and also how you've been affected by it, and even currently, you know, we walked a lot of this together, you know, and also, and I've seen a lot of the unfairness. I've seen in many cases, if you have not been working with an organization like Nehemiah, you would have had to push the restart button on your life, right? That means restart trying to find another job, restart trying to find housing, restart, you know, if yeah, I'm sorry. If you can please, people need to know and hear the reality of all this and how you've been affected.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, just listening to this, it's just it's a lot. It's a lot of feelings, emotions involved in this. I have questions specifically for Mark. Um, but living but living with this GPS, I've been on it since 2010. I'm currently not on any supervision. I don't have a PO, any of that. And you would think that you would have your liberties back, but actually, you don't get all your liberties when you're on a GPS monitoring. It's very invasive. Um, just something so simple as going to sleep. You can't sleep like everybody else sleep. You got to make sure you're charged up at all times. Um, you know, if you know, God forbid you want to travel, um, because, then that becomes issues. Um, so everything about being on the GPS, from my understanding, um, has been this is not punitive in any way, shape, or form. Um, but what I've learned more than anything, and I think this is, you know, what I would throw at Mark whenever the time is appropriate. You kind of lead a coop, but um,
Mhm.
what I've noticed, and specifically about Wisconsin, is something that I saw that was just it became mind blowing to me. And I'll give you an example of what I mean. There was an issue in the state of Wisconsin, specifically with the Department of Corrections, and it's about uh, venues. So it's really just basically
Mhm.
um, they were able people that were incarcerated, they were able to order from Marcus. They were able to order from Access. So they had three vendings, and part of in their um, paperwork, they said they would always make it so that no one could pretty much monopolize, food, so on and so forth. And then there was a very powerful company that came through here who wanted the whole state of Wisconsin. And whatever the state of Wisconsin wanted them to do, they would do it in order to be able to make sure that all purchases, food, clothing, shoes, books, anything that you can think of had to be purchased through this specific company. And the name is not clear to me who it is. I think it's Access or it's someone. The name will pop up or somebody will throw it in the
Yeah,
chat.
I forgot to.
But but I share that to say this. What I'm starting to understand is that this is no union supply. Thank you
Yeah,
kindly. I
yeah. Thank
appreciate
you, Peggy.
it. But the reason this is important is because I don't know like where you are, Mark, but here in the state of Wisconsin, everything deals with dollars and cents. And if you got money and you got power, law goes out of the window. We're not hearing none of that. That is null and void. We're not using law. And
Mhm.
so it becomes interesting to me when it's clear, if I break the law, then I'll be held accountable. But it's interesting when our, we create laws and we see that we have these laws in play, but not all parties have to abide by the law,
Yeah.
which is interesting to me. And so it becomes interesting because I know that this GPS is very lucrative. I know dollars and cents is very much connected to this. As much as we put out there, it's about protecting the community and keeping people safe. It has nothing. They could give a damn about the community or any of the above.
Mhm.
That's kind of why we're in the situation we're in. And so I'm always wondering, how do you get through that when you clearly know the driver behind a lot of this has something to do with money? How do you work through that? How do you navigate when you clearly know that it's injustice? We're violating our constitutional rights, right? All of the above, nevertheless, money is the biggest driver behind it. And if in fact you had to change this narrative, it would affect a lot of people's
Mhm.
pocketbook. So how do you get through that navigation piece?
Should I go?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead, Mark.
Well, on one level, uh, our litigation strategy is to avoid Wisconsin courts and politics completely. And that's why all of our lawsuits are brought in federal court. So the reality, I'm sorry to say, is that Wisconsin courts and the Department of Corrections seem to be intimately connected in the state of Wisconsin. And I think, Aaron, what you're alluding to about money and power and politics, affects, is related to that integration of those two entities. And so if you're going to sue the Department of Corrections in Wisconsin, you have a very long, hard road to hoe. But one way to get out of that is to go into the federal court system, where the judges are not elected and they have no, relationship to the Department of Corrections, and they are more independent. And so that is that is one reason that I am optimistic that things will get better. It's going to take a while and the law is slow, but I am hopeful.
That thank you for that. I because even in just hearing and I know, Aaron, you kind of tapped on it a little bit as far as the finance piece of it, right? I think it's important for you to share how much that you have to pay and the effects of you not paying, or how it affects you from credit to becoming a homeowner, becoming all the other different effects that, again, you in some sense kind of thought you would have had some of your liberties back, or or if not all of your liberties back, after you served your time. Because this was something, and I'll share this. I know I'll share this just in case if you miss it, because this was something that was not given to Aaron a part of his sentencing. This was something that was given to him after. So all of those things, to me, again, is Aaron, and many like Aaron and others become a financial ticket in some sense for the state of Wisconsin. So, Aaron, if you don't mind, kind of getting into that a little bit more as well.
No, yeah, absolutely. So I pay $240 a month for the rest of my entire life. Um, and I'm put on a GPS monitor without a judge, without a jury. Um, when I went to court, I was sentenced to 16 years running consecutive to 2. That was in 1998. GPS didn't even exist in that time. Um, and when I came home in 2010 and I finally, got out, nothing was ever told to me about you would be on this for the rest of your life. Um, so in saying all the above, um, to live like this, I mean, it's all it is the modern day ball and chain. That's all you're seeing. You're seeing slavery all over again. It's just been modernized to the current time of now. But nevertheless, it's very much slavery in its very real form. Um, and so to have to pay like this, to have to, when it comes time to you want to purchase a home, oh, well, you still got to pay Department of Corrections, right? Um, when you want to get your taxes and stuff all lined up so that you can be able to purchase a home, oh, you still this thing with the Department of Correction, it just pops up. You file your taxes. Oh, your taxes have been intercepted. Department of Corrections. Again, for them to be able to create a way in which no judge, no jury, I wasn't given a life sentence in any way, shape, or form. Nevertheless, I have a guaranteed life sentence as long as I live in the state of Wisconsin. This is where I'm from. So I'm not from Illinois or Minnesota, Michigan, and none of the above. Born and raised right here. So it's like to have to leave here in order to get this bracelet off me, this is horrible. And for any human being. And at the end of the day, there's nothing in any way, shape, or form that can support that this keeps the community safe in any way, shape, or form. At all. And we know that the agenda has nothing to do with keeping our community safe, because we can't even make decisions on gun rights, right? So we know they don't give a damn about the community in any way, shape, or form. That's not the agenda. And until we understand clearly that's not the agenda in any way, shape, or form, you're gonna keep running your head into a brick wall. The community is null and void. There's nothing about the community. This has everything to do with dollars and cents and keeping communities, in division and keeping them the way they are currently.
You know, thank you, Aaron. And Mark, this is a question for you, and then Britt, please chime in as well, because this is some of the, not only just going through this and seeing the path that I've seen Aaron go on, phenomenal brother, leader in the community, has done some phenomenal things to give back, and also to be able to teach people about his own past, right? And so, I want us to also be able to talk about what can we do collectively. Mark, if there's some things that you may know, I definitely vote, right? But then also, Mark, are there things that you may know of that we can do in our state collectively to be able to have not only a conversation, but make sure action is actually happening? Because again, we're trying to change generations. At the end of the day, everything that what we do here and other people who are also doing the same type of work, this is affecting generations. Yeah, so I don't know, Mark, if you had anything that you may want to add to that.
Well, I mean, my thoughts about changing these things through politics, I don't have a lot of optimism about that. I mean, at least in the work that I do regarding people that have been convicted of sex offenses, politicians in Illinois and Wisconsin have never met a restriction that they didn't endorse that's imposed upon people that have been convicted of sex offenses. They are very politically popular because sex offenders, of course, have become, monsters. They've been identified as the monsters that we should all be afraid of. Of course, it's exaggerated. Of course, it's unreasonable. It's irrational. But the reality, I want to accept the realities. And that's one of the reasons why I emphasize in my work the litigation, finding that these laws to be unconstitutional through the court system as opposed to changes in the legislation. And that's because a judge is independent of the political pressures that are imposed by the population at large. Okay, having said that, when it's kind of pessimistic, I also think that what we're doing and talking about these laws is very important and how bad they are. I mean, the truth of the matter is that I only got involved in this work at all and devoted the last 7 years of my life to it because I had a chance interaction with somebody who was subject to these laws in Illinois. Illinois doesn't have lifetime GPS, but Illinois has plenty of other horribly harsh, unnecessary, irrational restrictions. And my encounter with that person was the only way, and conversations with them, that I learned about these horrible laws, and it changed my life and gave my life purpose in some respects. Anyway, so I applaud all of us for talking about these things to each other and other people. And I know how hard it is to change people's minds, but it's the only way to do it.
Thank you. Britt, are there any ways that you may have thought of, or that are even outside the box, right?
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing Mark kind of started talking about towards the end is like, we have to destroy this illusion of the boogeyman. So many shows and so many things have created people to believe that there's a super high recidivism rate among people who've been convicted of sex offenses when the national average is 4%, that people will actually recommit a sex offense. And a lot of people are asking about this punitiveness, right? Of like, how does this get to change later in life? Like GPS, I don't even think existed when Aaron got his conviction. And for a lot of people, it didn't. The article that came out in the Cap Times and one of the gentlemen, I think Mark helped, they were completely discharged from supervision, got a call years later and was like, now you're on GPS. And that's because they've ruled in 2003, I think it was, that like the registry is not punitive. It's more about community safety and all these things. And we know that's not true. We know that someone having to list all of their internet indicators, so every place they do a login in regards to the registry, in no way, like whether or not Aaron or anybody else in the registry has a login to Pick and Save to get coupons, what does the government need to know that? You know what I mean? So the whole thing to me about fixing and out of the box, for a lot of it has been challenging the system. When you have people who are not doing anything and being required to be on a lifetime GPS, that's going to cost them hundreds of thousands of dollars. And we would have thought to give Aaron or anyone on lifetime GPS the conviction of, you have to pay 150 grand at that moment, everyone would think that's ludicrous. But the DOC and other places have got away with it because they've done it over years in smaller chunks and tried to supplement it. And I think the more that we get out, the more people know that this is happening to real people all around you, that you actually live with people who are on the registry in any capacity and you're not at risk. And I think that's the biggest problem is we've created the DOC, and I'm going to say this very strongly, the DOC in the state of Wisconsin has created a problem and then trying to tackle their problem to gain money. Like that's what it is. It's let's create and make this big heap about all these people in the registry and do whatever we can. And now we're going to charge people tons and tons of money and put them on lifetime GPS because GPS since 2018. So since like the interpretation has changed that Mark alluded to, GPS and people on it has increased 4 times what it originally was. That's that tells you enough. This is about money. So unless we start to talk about the reality that people should not be required to be on GPS, that people have done everything they were supposed to, and their compliance with following their sentence was enough. I mean, we've also seen people's extension of getting 15 years was their judgment at conviction and now getting lifetime. And then now being put on GPS, like it has been retroactive for a very long time until, like Mark said, someone goes to the Supreme Court and challenges it at a federal level that it's no longer about community safety. And that the reality is this is a punishment and we need to call it what it is, because someone getting arrested, X amount of times in a year is ridiculous for malfunctions, for nothing else, not breaking laws, just malfunctions. That should be enough to tell us this isn't working and this isn't doing what we want, but anyone thinks it is.
Thank you for what you said, and this is something that I know we and Britt, we've talked plenty of times about this issue and others, and same for Aaron. But I want our audience to understand that the Department of Corrections, basically, this is the ultimate business plan, right? And this is their way of being able to really capitalize on human capital, right? So this is just me, right? I think a lot deeper in these situations, even from friends, Aaron and others who we sit down and we have real deep conversations, because I think about not only even the financial piece of it, but also the emotional piece of it, right? But then and how those things also is targeted right back to the system. Right. So if I'm not well mentally, emotionally, I don't have outlets. So and then I have a drug challenge, right? Or I have I think of ways of committing other crimes because I feel like there's no other way out. 9 times out of 10, they are funneling people right back into the system, because there's almost no way out, especially. But now, again, similar to what Mark has said, and Britt, you said as well, let's use the boogeyman, right? Or the boogie woman, for that matter, because this isn't just a man thing. So I want to make sure that's being said as well, right? So these are just, I don't know, it pisses me off. Sorry, I'm trying not to talk in emotion, right? But because of the simple fact, because like I didn't know Aaron before I started working at Nehemiah, but we came across each other and ended up meeting. I was doing some other work, and we met then. And I was like, man, brother, we gonna figure something out, whatever the case may be. The next thing we end up working together, which is, and it has truly been a blessing as well. So when I think about that, and just think about how many roadblocks, not only just having a felony on your record, you have roadblocks that you face, but then also you have all these other things that are against you. I'm sorry, let me not call them things. You have the systems and also people in the community who don't understand people that who have been in situations like Aaron or whoever. That to me, that is mind-boggling because of the simple fact of what can we all do to actually support, not only support, but then uplift and also challenge the systems that be to be able to show, like, look, this shit is wrong. Excuse me, but I mean, you know, there's just it is wrong, and it's modern day slavery, but we're putting a totally different name on it, time and time again. So again, I hopefully, especially with our audience, I want them to think about, how do we change? How do we get things to change? But then also how, because again, it's not just changing it just for, it's not even just changing just for Aaron. I'm thinking about changing for the generations to come. So, Britt, can you talk a little bit about, like, hopefully I said it correctly, historicals, like, someone was to get a charge as a youth, and then they get into say they stole a candy bar. I'm fishing.
Yeah,
right?
I can get into that. I can also
thank
give, I have two examples. So one that I was thinking about as you were speaking was someone that I just had to write a letter for the state of Illinois, and false imprisonment. So what people don't know is in the state of Wisconsin, false imprisonment that involves a minor. So let's say this gentleman, they had home invaded. He got convicted he went to trial and had 3 convictions of false imprisonment based on the people who were in the house. And he got out, he found out a month after he served his 10-year sentence that he was going to be put on the registry for life with a lifetime GPS in the state of Wisconsin, and also deemed a sex offender. And I had to write a letter to the state of Illinois so he could move there and not be required to register. And the state of Wisconsin, again, added another person. So it's bigger than just people with sex offenses. And I really want to say that this lifetime GPS, there are other things that people can get convicted of that put them on the registry that have nothing to do with anything sexual in nature. And we've also seen a lot of people impacted with having a case when they were a minor because of the two, like what Mark said, the 2 occasions. So this is where we've seen it the most, is originally 2 occasions has always, I think any law person would say AG Schimmel, when he made the decision in 2018, was wrong. The United States just came down with Wooden v. United States, which basically says that Wooden's wrong, that Schimmel is wrong, meaning that 2 occasions is 2 separate times, not 2 separate counts. So what happened for a lot of people when they were a youth, if they got convicted, is now they had 2 convictions that were sexual in nature or whatever it was that got them on the registry. And then because it says 2 or more occasions, that now you're on lifetime GPS. So essentially it made people lifetime criminals in one, or viewed that way in one particular situation. So rather than it being like you got a conviction here and got another one later, a lot of people that ended up being impacted were younger folks who took a plea, some people didn't even go, get a significant amount of time in prison. They got probation, but because they have multiple counts, they now were deemed to be on lifetime GPS. And then that's where my biggest issue with, among many things of why what's wrong with GPS, is you have a lot of people who have done everything they were supposed to do and then now have to be on lifetime GPS just because one person decided to interpret the law to benefit the Department of Corrections, rather than think about how that impacts individuals that are now required to be on lifetime GPS. And the reality is either way, that's not It's not just the way the law should be. So I think when you're talking about the second thing I would say is like what I referred to with merit, like someone getting convicted of another crime. We had a woman actually who was convicted of prostitution. And for those of you who don't know, until recently, the past couple 5 or 6 years, prostitution is a crime that would put you on the registry. So years later, and I mean, she truth and sentencing got out 2014, was done, no probation parole, went back for a misdemeanor, and then was told she couldn't have a party for her child. So like she's another person who like came back, completed her sentence, did all the programming, whatever it was. Not to mention she was on there for prostitution when she was 18 or 19, and now is being treated as if she is a sex offender when she was on supervision. And because she challenged the Department of Corrections, she also was basically stuck. We had to deal with her being stuck incarcerated for her last like 90 days after we challenged, so that she could have a birthday party for her 6-year-old. So that's the other thing is like, you have to like have a community around people, I think too, that are like, we can't run away from this. You want to talk about changing it, is people have to come alongside people who are impacted by the registry and say, this isn't okay. Because what's happening is people are getting railroaded. People are getting locked up. And it isn't until somebody like myself or other people make a phone call and ask the DOC to do the right thing that they start doing the right thing, because somebody else is saying, hey, this isn't okay. So I think a lot of it is building communities around people and understand that people are people at the end of the day. Like, we are all people, and regardless of decisions, still should be respected and treated with human dignity. And I think that to me is where my heart sits and how heavy this is, because I don't think people realize how challenging it is to go through every day being reminded of something that happened years ago. And for a lot of people, no one would reasonably think that they would be a risk to the community in any capacity, shape, or form. And I said this on a call last week when we did it. Like, there are people who are diagnosed with pedophilia and who are celibate. Like, there are people who exist in our community who have done atrocious things, who also are doing everything they can to not repeat that. And that's supposed to be supposedly the goal of the Department of Corrections.
Right.
But we don't work that way.
Mm-hmm. Well said. Well said.
So.
Mark, I was going to ask, is there anything that you would like to be able to add, or things to add, or what are you thinking? I'll just put it out there. What do you think as we're having this conversation?
Well, one thing that I'd like to raise, because I want to know if there's actual evidence of this, is that I've always worked on the assumption that it's the political benefits that politicians garner by passing laws like the lifetime GPS. It's not because it actually raises money for the state, because I've always thought that it actually costs the state money to run this ridiculous lifetime GPS program. And I know, Aaron, you're paying $240 a month. You're not benefiting. You're paying, pretty good money for, this burden that you have to endure. But I've always thought that it's like, if the public understood that there is no public, that they should better understand that the psychic benefits that they get by supporting horrible legislation like this is actually costing them money, taxpayer money. But what I'd like to know, if any of you guys know, because I haven't seen the evidence, is it known how much it costs to run this program? Is there any financial data out there that would support my theory, as opposed to what's been suggested, that the state is actually benefiting financially from this system?
I would just chime in on that little piece. I can just tell you this. I can tell you that I don't know how it is in Illinois, but in the state of Wisconsin, I can tell you that this company is privatized. They've always wanted Wisconsin to have privatized prisons. We currently have no privatize prisons. However, all the business that we do is very much privatized, from canteen, GPS, everything you can think of. So it's almost like we're going to stay not privatized so we can stay under control, but we will still. So
Contract.
that's right. We're contracting out. And
Mhm.
so, for example, whenever my GPS it's not fully charged, or when it's totally not charged at all, you know what happens? The police come to my house, right? Now, mind you, I'm not on any supervision. I don't have an agent, none of the above. Well, the question has to be asked, well, why does the police come to your house?
Mhm.
It's a great question. I have an answer for you. They come to the house strictly to see if the GPS is on my ankle or not. Have I cut it off or not? Now, that seems like no big deal. But now another question would have to be asked. Well, for the police to come out to your house, how much would that cost? It's a cost behind that. The second question is, who's paying this cost? Oh, I'm glad you asked. It's the community. You pay this. Not for no crime, not because it's domestic, not because of anything else. Guess how many police come to my house? Not just one, two police cars pull up to my house, right? And the only question they want to know, it's a body warrant that goes out. Oh, do you have your bracelet on? Can you raise your leg up so we can see it? Okay, thank you, and leave. That's tax dollars money, right?
Mhm.
But people don't see that they paying all of that. So to I don't know if I can answer specifically that specific question, but I do believe there has to be, in some way, shape, or form, some benefits, some kickbacks, some something, because I can guarantee anything that the state of Wisconsin do, I promise you, you'll always know everything that they're about based on how they spend their money. And their money currently, I think right now the UW might, their budget may be a little bit higher than the Department of Correction, but I know we're currently at least bare minimum we at 1.3 billion. So if we're at 1.3 billion, then I mean I don't know how this is all being allocated and where this money is going to. I don't know where, when people are paying this GPS, nobody knows where this money is going to. Another thing, I don't know if you remember this, Britt, but we were actually going to go to the state of Tennessee, and the state of Tennessee told me if in fact if I stepped on their ground, I would immediately go to jail.
What?
Yes, that's what they told me, because part of being on the registry is, um if you gotta travel to another state, then you have
Yeah,
to
you have to
contact
report it.
that
Yeah.
state. You have to go through all of this stuff to let them know, so on and so forth. They got back a hold of me and they let me know if in fact you do come to the state of Tennessee, you will be going directly to jail. So it's living like that, and nobody sees that as punishment. And I just trying to understand, like, how do you not see that? Can everybody else fly? Do the police show up at other people's house if there's no crime committed? So how do I have my liberties? In what way, shape, or form? I don't. And because I don't, it has been justified, and it costs, and it's costing me. And I mean, nobody talks about the mental trauma. We
Mhm.
use this word, we use this word trauma informed care, but the very people who use the word are the very people creating the trauma.
Right.
So how does that work? Again, to have to live this it's very different than anything you could read, anything that you could ever imagine. I get threats if I stay over at a friend's house for more than 2 to 3 or 4 days. I get calls, I get GPSs. You've been here too long and you can't stay over there, you have to go back to your residence. Oh, and this is a class H felony if you don't.
Yeah. I,
Again.
Yeah.
I would say
Yeah.
I have I think to answer Mark's question, I have an answer. So the answer is, yeah, they're making money because prisons.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you talk about legislators who don't want to close down prisons because they're like, what are we going to do with these environments in these places that have been built because we built a prison there? When you look at a lot of the places in Wisconsin where prisons are built, they were built in small places, and now a significant amount of their economy is built around the prison. And then when you learn that most of our prison population, a good 60% or so that are held in the Department of Corrections, are for probation violations.
Mm-hmm.
So when you learn that, and then you think about how many of those are due to GPS, and then we're just filling up. I mean, the amount of people, I've rarely met someone who's been on GPS who is not at some point re-entered and had to go back to jail or prison to serve some type of time because of the bracelet. Strictly not committing new crimes. So when you talk about, is it lucrative? Of course, because if we start shutting down prisons and we get rid of GPS and some of these other collateral consequences, people within prisons will not have jobs because where will they go? And that's the reality. Is like it makes money in a different way. It may not be just the Department of Corrections as a huge entity, but it's people who work within there, and legislators and other people don't want to close down prisons.
Yeah.
So that's what I would say. Like when you're talking about money and you're talking about trauma, like it would be way easier to get somebody therapy and way cheaper than the amount of money that they're probably
Mhm.
spending to have people monitor people on GPS or on probation or any of the things that we're doing. I mean, our return on investment right now, like no one would invest if they had the Department of Corrections literally listed as like how you would go to a bank. No one would think it would fathomable to invest in the Department of Corrections the way it's functioning right now with GPS. The return on investment is terrible.
Let me just throw it.
Oh no, go ahead,
I
Aaron.
just want to throw something to you, Mark. Something so you can see it in its crystal clearest form. Something that Britt was talking about. One of the things here is a lot of our rural areas were basically falling. So they started building prisons. That's when we had Tommy Thompson pushing all of these prisons, which immediately builds up their economy. Now, let me just show you why, for me, how I think and how crimes are being committed all around the board. So I'm going to say about 60 to 70% of people who are incarcerated come from Milwaukee County. It's the biggest, right? With that being said, second to that would be Dane County.
Mhm.
Now, when you go to prison and you get released, so when I got released from Oshkosh Correctional. But what's interesting is they do a census. You understand the census to some degree, right, Mark?
Yeah.
So that's based on in our census. So what happens is wherever those prisons is, those individuals are also counted on the census. Though
Mhm.
they don't even live in that county, never committed a crime in that county. However, that county receives funding for that individual. So any person that's in the state of Wisconsin prison system, when they get out, wherever they get out from, they will have an address. And that address will be from that county from where they were released from. And they will receive money for the next 10 years for that individual. So again, this is why this is very important to understand the dynamics because it's also about building up other communities, a lot of the rural communities.
Right.
When farming is not going good and all of those different things are not going well, we can utilize incarceration as a means to be able to build that back up. I wish I had a church right now because they would say it'd be a whole bunch of amens right
I
there.
give you an amen just for that. All right. Yeah, and you know, and again, it kind of goes again back to our earlier conversation, and many of us, and I feel like we're saying it in different ways, is the fact that how it is a business plan, and even though we're saying that it's not lucrative for the people, but it is lucrative for the Department of Corrections and even us as a state because it all feeds right back into it, right? And you know, and a matter of fact, I was just thinking. I know our data person, Karen Reese, Pfeffer, she's you know, I know she has some of that information. I can make sure that that's shared with you, Mark. Um, but it's a business plan. It's a you know, and this is one of the things that and we're using the capital is people. And there's no other way of looking at it. No matter how you may slice it, no matter whether, because if it's not a GPS system, what's the next thing? Right. Yeah, it's 200 and some 200 some dollars or whatever. But if you have a million people who are paying that money really, that money adds up. So yeah, go ahead, Aaron.
I just was wondering, Mark, do you know, or does I'm kind of curious. I mean, you may don't know for the state of Wisconsin, but I'm just kind of curious. Do you have an idea where this money goes to?
The money that you pay for the privilege of wearing your GPS, that money.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think that probably goes to the DOC. Yeah. So, and I have no idea, if there's a special fund for it or if it's just for general, uses. Yeah. So I don't know very well. We don't have lifetime GPS in Illinois.
Yeah. Something else we're able to do here in the state of Wisconsin. So the biggest prison in the state of Wisconsin is Oshkosh Correctional. It holds over 2,000 plus people. With that being said, people have money coming in and out of there. Now, you would think they would have 5, 10, I don't know, a whole lot of accounts. You know how many accounts they have? One account. All money goes into one account. Do you know that money accumulates interest?
Yeah.
Do you know that no person who money comes in sees any of that interest at all? My biggest question is, where's this interest going?
Yeah,
But
that's a big
again, but again, crime is being committed all the way around the board. But some crimes are justifiable, and if you're a person of color specifically, more than likely that crime will go. You will be held accountable. But everybody's not being held accountable, and those are things that just make me say,
Yeah. Amen.
I found some numbers.
Yeah, I see that. I was just go ahead, Brett.
So for the Division of Community Corrections, GPS sex offender tracking, third words, $2,122,800 for the fiscal year of 2022. And it's going to be $4,168,000 in the fiscal year of 2023. And the budget is for 2,681 clients in 2022. So with the $4 million budget, it's 2,920 clients that will be on GPS. Those are their words.
Wow.
So it's money. Like how does your budget almost double? And you're talking about 200, if I'm doing the math right, 219 people. I think I did the math right. But your budget doubled. I just threw the link in if people want to look at the GPS is listed on there, and I just searched it. I can't tell you what page on the PowerPoint it is.
Yeah.
The hustle game is real though.
Right. Yeah. So again, when we
Numbers
talk about it talk about it being a business plan, we're talking about it being a hustle, but by it being something that is not doing what it says that it's supposed to do. Department of Correction, who are you correcting? We need to, and not to say that people cannot be held accountable for things. So I want to make sure that anyone who's listening to this understands that. Not to say that people should not be accountable, but to be able to pretty much capitalize on people's lives for the rest of their lives, that's wrong. We have to call it what it is. It's just wrong. I'm
sorry. Go ahead.
No, yeah. So we have to make sure that now, again, the next steps as we're having these conversations, I want to make sure that also, typically I know we go to around 1 o'clock. This one's a little bit longer for questions and things of that nature. Just like where we actually have a podcast that is coming up with Justify Anger. It's called Shackled. talking about the electronic monitoring series and trying to be able to have deeper conversation, even more conversations about not only how Aaron's been affected, how other people have been affected throughout our state. And to be able to really make things very real for you all. I mean, this is just senseless. Something that I always say is the fact that where there's no such thing as a perfect person. Every person can be redeemed. I don't care your crime. I don't care what that thing is that has been holding you back. So we have to make sure that people are being looked at as redeemable as well. So I'm sorry, Aaron, you're about to mention something.
I just wanted to add, I'm all for accountability, but it has to be universal.
Yeah, all the way around. Yep.
You know, anytime, I'm just using it on a broad scale, but anytime that you can find Bill Cosby guilty of sex crimes, you can find R. Kelly guilty of sex crimes, in some nature, but you can't find Donald Trump guilty. Like,
Mm,
if we're not going to do it universal, then I'm not in agreement of it all. Something that I would throw out there, just some food for thought. I always pondered on this whenever I speak. I speak. I always pose this question: how many people grew up believing that Christopher Columbus discovered America? And when I ask that question, all the hands go up. And then I ask how many people know that that's not true, and all the hands go up. And I've always pondered, well,
mhm,
why don't we take that out of our schools? If we know that's not true, why wouldn't we get rid of that? Why we continue specifically to teach it to our children? Just things to make you say, hmm. But what I've come to the conclusion is this: if we were to take that out of our history, really, that in itself, it would affect specifically white men. That narrative, that story, because it's written specifically for them. And this country is not based on two things. Is not based on one, people of color. If you go
mhm,
to outside of America, you'll see people of color exalted, just like you'll see women exalted.
mhm.
And two things America does not exalt is people of color and women. I just want to throw that in the
Yeah,
pot.
thanks, Aaron, for saying that. Oh man. Um, I'm not sure. I know we're kind of winding down as far as time wise. But if there's any questions or anything that you all want to put out there, um, we definitely ask as we're finishing out and about to close out here shortly. And if not, if there's no other questions, I do want to make sure that you all please check out the Justified Anger podcast, Shackled, with my colleague and brother, Aaron Hicks, and also Pastor G. Alex G will be on there as well. And start looking out for that podcast that will be coming out here pretty soon. Also, please check out not only Nehemiah, Justify Anger, Expo, and other organizations that are throughout the community, not only just the Madison community as well, but outside of the Madison community. Okay, well, yeah, so actually, Aaron may not, Alex may not be on that podcast, but at the same time, it'll still be a phenomenal listen. Please look forward to our next session on August 11th at 12 p.m. Yeah, please check your emails. Looking forward to either seeing or hearing from you all next time. Please, everyone, have a blessed day.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you all. And we are still live. Don't, just in case you want to say something crazy to me. or, you know. But man, hey, phenomenal. I think yeah, Mark wants to log off, but phenomenal work, you all. Looking forward to catching up soon or catching up. As a matter of fact, if you all want to, probably this weekend or even next week, let's do lunch. And the lunch is going to be on Brit.
That's funny because I won't be in town.
Oh man, dang it. Next time.
It can be on me, but I won't be here, so I can make some box lunches and leave them.
All right, and no problem. Just make the box lunch. No bologna though. No bologna.
I don't know the last time I ate bologna. No, I'm a PB&J person for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Or like heavy on the meat. Yeah.
Right.
Cheeses. Yeah. Are we just gonna stay on live? Is that the plan?
Oh no, actually, you can log off. I know I'll probably check in with you all in a little bit. Either way though. Okay.
Okay. I just logged. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Peace.
Yeah.
Eli, thank you for all that you do, man. Hopefully you hear me in the background there. Thank you for all that you do. Thank you for the phenomenal music as well. We appreciate you, man.